In this video, you're going to hear about my experiences with ayahuasca and how it's drastically changed my life. It's taken me a long time to feel ready to talk about these really vulnerable experiences and to share my story. I'm going to start off by telling you what my life was like before I did ayahuasca, so you can understand why I felt so called to it. I'll explain a few of my journeys, as they're often referred to, under the influence of ayahuasca, and my mindset now since I've done ayahuasca 11 times. It's been a long time coming, and I'm still processing it to this day, but I hope this helps you in some way. Just keep in mind that this is my story, and everybody has different experiences with ayahuasca. So, I want to start off by telling you why I felt drawn to ayahuasca. Firstly, I had never done any drugs when I was young, up until I was 26, up until I tried ayahuasca, actually. I had never smoked anything, I had never taken anything. I was always kind of like a straight and narrow person. And I took a lot of pride in that, actually, of coming across like a clean-cut girl. I also come from parents that are heavy drinkers, and I am originally from Miami, and I've just seen a lot of my peers fall into drugs and fall into bad habits. So I always felt like that was kind of my saving grace. Like, I wasn't perfect, but I never did any drugs. And I was as clean as I thought I could be. But when I was in college, I was in a really dark place. My social anxiety at that point was just completely controlling my life. I went to a university that was close enough to the beach. And part of the reason I did that was because I thought how nice it would be to just meet new people and make friends and go to parties on the beach. And I would kind of fantasize about me opening up and being gregarious and having this really social college life. But what I actually experienced was quite opposite to that. I was very self-deprecating. It only took me minutes of meeting you to think that you didn't like me. I would just immediately think that you saw my flaws, you didn't think I was good enough, you maybe classified me as ugly. I mean, the list of self-critical thoughts I had was infinite, and I was very creative. Whew. So when I was in college, a family friend came to visit my aunt and uncle, and I went back in the summertime to see my aunt and uncle when we had summer break. And I was staying at their place, and this family friend, an incredible woman, she was in her 50s, I think, at the time, maybe 60s, and she was backpacking South America by herself, and truly my idol. And she was telling us about her experience. And as she was telling us about her experience, she had just gotten back from South America. She told me about ayahuasca. And I'm like, what? Like, what is that? And she explained to me how it's like the psychedelic brew that the Native Americans consume and kind of have sacred ceremonies with to help heal people on many levels. And in that moment, as soon as she finished describing what ayahuasca was, I immediately said, I want to do that. I grabbed my phone, I took a note, I asked her to spell it, and I just felt so drawn to doing it, which was crazy because when I tell this story sometimes to people, they're like, wait, hold on. You didn't smoke weed, you didn't take any drugs, but you heard about ayahuasca, debatably the strongest psychedelic there is out there, and you wanted to do it? And I always respond with, yes. Yes. What's funny, and I didn't know this at the time, is that many people who work with ayahuasca, including the shamanic people, say that when you are ready, you will get the call. You will feel called to ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is considered a maternal spirit. And that was immediately how I felt. And I had never heard of ayahuasca or heard about this calling that people ubiquitously talk about in the spiritual community. But yeah, I definitely felt called. I went back to college. I definitely couldn't afford to sit in an ayahuasca ceremony because it's typically not inexpensive anyway. There are ceremonies you can find that are less expensive than the thousands of dollars you see online, but at that time it wasn't as mainstream as it is now. And I mean, you know what it's like when you're in college. You can't afford anything, you know? You're eating ramen, Waffle House. Anyway, so I get back to college and I kind of had a new slither of hope. I don't know, I kind of felt that maybe one day I'd be able to do this ayahuasca and maybe it would help me with my social anxiety and depression. I didn't really touch on the depression part, but yeah, it's, at least for me, it was definitely a gray area whether some days I felt socially anxious or some days I felt depressed. I mean, it's very easy to feel depressed when you feel like you have no friends and you feel like nobody likes you and you feel completely abandoned all the time. I did have friends. I had a best friend, and she's still my best friend. And I really think in many ways she saved me. So Jasmine, if you're watching this, I love you. And you probably are because you're a big supporter of mine, so thank you. But it was very hard for me to keep a circle. I would also like to feel wanted and to feel validated. At the time in my life, I was like a huge flirt, and I used to flirt with a lot of guys just because I was desperate for that attention. I was desperate to feel love, really. And I would rather be texting 8 guys at once that I wasn't attracted to than have nobody texting me at all. Yeah, that's very vulnerable for me to talk about because I don't have shame about that part of my past. I wasn't sleeping around, but I am still sometimes embarrassed by the hurt and pain I caused people who thought I was genuinely interested in them in a romantic way, and what I ultimately was doing, even though I wasn't even consciously admitting it to myself, was just completely playing them because I was so afraid of being alone. Okay. I leave college. I moved to Ireland. The details I'll probably talk about in another video, but anyways, I moved to Ireland and I started to kind of find my own a little bit. I had a beautiful relationship. We broke up. I moved into my own apartment. I wasn't living on my own. I had housemates, but you know, I had my own room, and I started to feel like a little bit independent, like in a different country, single. I joined a CrossFit gym. I started getting fit, sexy, you know, and I actually started making friends in this CrossFit gym, and I started, you know, kind of like growing a tribe of friends. So there were days I actually felt pretty good, but then other days when I didn't feel good, if my friends were busy, if I was hungover, that was a big trigger for me. If it was too dark outside, like it was a rainy day, those feelings would come back, and then the self-deprecation would begin. And I would continuously tell myself that my friends don't actually like me. I am not good enough. You know? I constantly felt abandoned. Even though I wasn't, you know, like I did have people that loved me, cared for me, but I kind of felt like it was a lie. It was really hard. And I started, like, even though I had some days that were good, the days that were bad, I was just like, man, I can't live like this, you know? So, I now had a little bit more money, you know? I'm out of college, I have a little bit more money. Not tons, I'm not making 6 figures or anything like that, but I can save a little bit. And I remembered about ayahuasca. I mean, I never really forgot, but it kind of came to the forefront of my mind again. And I just thought, man, I need to give this ayahuasca thing a try. So I was having a period, like a span of a few weeks where I was really in my head, and I also was working a job at the time where I don't want to say that I was being bullied by my coworkers, because I think I also was very obsessed with having a victim mentality, but I definitely didn't have warm coworkers. And because I was so incredibly sensitive, I just felt like I was being destroyed in work. You know, I felt like my value was completely being destroyed. It wasn't good. So anyways, I was going to work and I had like pretty much work-related depression, and then I was leaving work and I was feeling sad, and oh man, it was just overwhelming. So I reached out to that family friend and I asked her to, I just asked her, like, do you know anywhere I could do ayahuasca? Like, I really want to do it. And she said, well, funny enough, there is a place in the Netherlands that offers it. They offer ceremonies. And she sent me a link, and I looked at the link and I realized I could actually afford this place. It was incredible. It was like, I think it was like 400 or 500 euro for a weekend, which is, I mean, the euro to dollar as of right now are not too far from each other. So let's say it was like, I think it was 475 euro. It was like a little over $500, maybe 550, I don't know, but not like 600. Anyway, so I decide that I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go. I have to do it. I felt so called to it. And I didn't feel nervous at all. Like, I was so ready. I was like, I need to change. Like, I am ready for this. I am ready to have a new mind. Like, I'm ready to see life in a new way. And the thing is, I knew people who were like genuinely happy with their lives. Like, I don't think at the time I knew anyone like enlightened, but I definitely had friends that were like predominantly happy day to day. And you know, I wasn't daft enough to think that it wasn't possible. I just didn't know how to reconfigure my way of thinking to be on that level. So I still acknowledged that it was possible. Like, it had to be possible. Like, there had to be a way that I could start shifting my perspective. And maybe, you know, therapy could have done that for me. I did go to therapy in college. I skipped over that. It didn't really help me with my social anxiety, my depression, but it did help me with my perspective on my parents and like what I went through with my parents. Anyway, I booked the flights, I booked the retreat, and I head to the Netherlands. If you want to know the retreat center I went to, I think I can talk about it publicly, but maybe just in case, send me an email or write to me on Instagram. My information will be in the description box, and I'll tell you more about it. I'm super happy to share where I went with you because this place was absolutely wonderful. Anyways, I get there, and you know, essentially it's like a big open space with about 35 of us, and we each had like our own rooms in this building. It kind of looked like, it was like kind of like a hotel, but it wasn't a hotel. I don't know. Anyway, and the first day, like day one, we all just meet each other and we share why we're there. And it was a beautiful experience to see that like everyone came for like a very unique reason to them, but there were definitely similar themes, and I wasn't the only one kind of experiencing these kind of thoughts. So that was just like really beautiful to hear, because on a day-to-day, most people are not that vulnerable with what they're going through and how they think and what their mind is like. I know I wasn't. And yeah, so then the next day, Saturday, so Friday we get there, we had the sharing circle. Saturday, it's time for us to drink the ayahuasca. And there's a preparation that goes on beforehand, and also there's like medical waivers you sign, and there's like medical staff that's there as well. And at least my experience was I felt very safe. So I drink, we all take a cup of the ayahuasca, and within minutes, you know, some people start experiencing their journey. And in this place where I did it, people would wear a blindfold. We would have like sleeping bags spread out across the room, and you would be lying down your sleeping bag with your blindfold, and your journey would begin whenever it did. And for some reason, nothing happened after the first glass, so I had a second. Sometime later, nothing happened after the second glass. So me and one other person in the entire room had 3 glasses. And yeah, I don't know. I needed a little more to break through, I guess. And I was feeling really, really frustrated. And the person that had the 3rd glass eventually started having their journey, their experience, but I still wasn't. So I was starting to get angry. I was angry. I was like, I came all this way. I paid this money, you know, $500 being a lot of money still for someone in their mid-20s. And I was like, man, like this isn't happening. And, you know, there was like guides is what they referred to themselves as. There were guides in the room that were kind of helping us, monitoring us, aside from the medical staff. So a guide came over to me and said, are you okay? And I said, no, I'm frustrated. Like I've had 3 glasses. Like, should I have a 4th glass? What's going on? And they're like, oh, you need to surrender. Like, you're not surrendering. I'm like, I am surrendering. Like, I'm fucking surrendering. Like, I'm here. I've come all this way. And they said, no, you have to completely surrender. Like, you're forcing the experience. You want it to happen now. You want this, like, you're just desiring, wanting, forcing, expecting. Surrender and just be in the present moment. And I was like, okay. And I took a deep breath. And just like that, it started. It's crazy. I talk about this a little bit in another video that you can watch here. I'll put it right there. But so much happened in this experience, and if you've watched other videos or listened to other people talk about ayahuasca, then you probably have an idea of how hard it is to explain the experience. Also, if you've tried other psychedelics like mushrooms or LSD, it is very hard to explain those experiences. I once heard an analogy or metaphor, that mushrooms are like an airplane and ayahuasca is like a rocket ship. And that resonated a lot with me. What stands out to me more than anything is when I suddenly became nothing. Like I was literally in this darkness. I almost want to describe it as a dark room, but it wasn't a room. It was nothing. It was like being in the middle of space, but there was no planets, there was no stars. It was just nothingness, and I was nothingness. And I'm like looking around and seeing darkness, and then I start thinking, where am I? And as I start thinking, my thoughts are being spelled out in white letters in front of me and then disappearing. And so it was a very fun and entertaining experience because I was thinking things and I was watching my thoughts being spelled out. And then within 30 seconds, of course, my thoughts started being self-deprecating. And I started thinking, you know, what if I never change? And I couldn't finish my thought. It was like thought control. Like the thoughts were being spelled out, but then I was being cut off mid-thought and the white letters would disappear, like go poof, like just like disappear like that. And I heard this voice, and it said, trust, just like that. And I was like, what the fuck? Trust what? Like, what? You know? And so again, I immediately went into a negative thought, and the thought was being spelled out in front of me in white letters. It was interrupted, and I heard the trust again. And then it started to hit me. I was like, oh, okay. My negative thoughts are fear-based thoughts. They're not loving, trustworthy-based thoughts. Trustworthy is not the word, but like they're not like loving thoughts that are based in trust. Then I started having like maybe more positive thoughts, and I said, okay, so are you telling me to trust that everything is going to be okay? And I got no interruption. I would see the words spelled out in front of me in white letters, and they would disappear. And I'm like, so I could possibly stop having social anxiety and depression? Nothing. I'm like, oh. I'm like, but what if I stop having social anxiety and depression, and then all of a sudden it comes back and poof, trust. I don't know how long this went on for. Quite frankly, you lose track of time. Eventually the journey was over, and I started kind of coming to. I took off my blindfold. Other people were waking up as well, and we all had a sharing circle, and we shared about our experience. I went to bed. The next day was Sunday. I woke up. We said our goodbyes. I took the train. My memory card was full, so the video stopped, but hopefully I'm picking up right where it left off. But I was leaving I took the train. I left the ayahuasca center, or I left the center where they performed the ayahuasca. I was taking a train back to Amsterdam, and I left with some people I had met at the center, and I'm sitting on this train, and of course I have social anxiety, and everyone's talking, and I feel like my story is at least interesting, and I feel that I'm not connecting with other people, and the self-deprecation begins. And I just thought, okay, well, this didn't really work, did it? Here I am, I'm still feeling the same way. I do want to give credit to the place that I went to, because we did kind of have like an integration practice, and they did talk about like next steps and how you need to treat yourself, your mind, your body for the next coming weeks, and how ayahuasca stays in your system, and you know, how to keep your aura clean and be careful, you know, watching the news and who you're around, because your energy is so sensitive at that time. And, you know, just to be mindful of your thoughts, and not to rush to conclusions, and not to try to like overly interpret what your experience was, just to kind of settle in and give yourself grace. So although I was starting to be self-deprecating immediately on the train back to the airport to go back to Ireland, I did kind of think about that and say, okay, I need to just relax a little bit and give it some time. I just didn't know what to expect. And don't we all just want the magic pill that we can swallow that completely changes us and changes our lives? Like, we all want the easy way out, and I'm no different. At least I wasn't at the time. Now, this is when I saw a miracle. I get back to Ireland. Nothing has necessarily changed. Everything feels the same. But fast forward 2 weeks later, I have a Christmas party with my CrossFit gym. And I get ready. I go to this Christmas party. And as I'm on my way, walking over, we were like having pre-drinks, as the Irish call it, or pre-gaming, as Americans call it. We were having a pre-game, pre-drink at a friend's house, and I was walking over and I'm like, wow, I actually feel pretty confident right now. I was wearing a cute little dress, and you know, I don't know, I felt really beautiful. And I was like, okay, this is a interesting feeling. And I get to our friend's place, and I'm walking around talking to people, and I thought, oh my goodness, I don't have social anxiety right now. And I became so self-aware of it. I was like, whoa, I'm just talking to people and I feel myself. And I don't feel like I'm being judged, and I don't care if I am. And I feel really normal, and I'm not overthinking anything, and I'm really excited for the night, and I'm interested to hear other people's stories, and I just felt like I was in a state of flow. I don't know if you have social anxiety or not, but if you don't and you feel like that day to day talking to people, please don't ever take that for granted, because that is, from my perspective, in my opinion, that is a gift, because that never came to me naturally. And I just couldn't believe it. And I had such an incredible night, and I thought, I'm cured, you know? I was like so happy. And the next day I was hungover and I had social anxiety again. So, okay, I was not cured, but I got a glimpse of my potential. And what I realized was this: ayahuasca didn't change me. Ayahuasca was not the magic pill that I swallowed to become the person that I always fantasized of being, the person that I knew I was capable of being but didn't really know how to reach that version of her. What ayahuasca did was radically shift my perspective. It gave me the recipe. It gave me the ingredients, but it didn't give me the cake. It didn't make the cake for me. It said, here are all the things that you need. It's up to you. You can sit there with no cake, or you can make the cake and make it as fabulous as you want it to be, as long as you use these ingredients. What are the ingredients? What I got from the first ayahuasca experience was just trust. Not always listening to those fear-based thoughts. They're thoughts. They're just thoughts. And our thoughts are often not based in reality. And some people say our thoughts are never based in reality because our thoughts shape our reality, not the other way around. Really pay attention to that. Really think about what I just said. Our thoughts shape our reality. Our reality does not shape our thoughts. You might disagree with that. You might feel differently. That has maybe not been your experience. But the more I have started to believe that my thoughts shape my reality, the more radically I have seen my reality change. You ever heard that quote by Charles Swindoll? Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% on how you react to it. I am not saying that having a traumatic past or childhood, or even right now if you're going through trauma, I'm not saying that that's not real. But how we perceive the things that happen to us and how we react to them plays a bigger part in shaping our reality and the quality of our lives than what is actually happening to us. Whoa. Okay. I knew that it was time to start working on my thoughts, to shapeshift my reality. I was 26 years old when I did ayahuasca, and I am 31 years old now. And I no longer have social anxiety. I made a video about how I stopped having social anxiety, and it's a short video, and I'll share it with you here. In this video, it's a quick kind of explanation of faking it till you make it, essentially, is like what I'm saying in the video of like, act like the person or the version of you that does not have social anxiety, and eventually that will manifest. That's not necessarily in alignment with like what maybe psychologists or therapists would say. However, I come from a very spiritual based perspective. I mean, I'm also now a master certified life coach. However, a lot of my belief system is based more on the esoteric concepts, and I do truly believe that there's a lot of truth to that. Of if you start thinking in the way you want to be and start acting as if, eventually you will come into alignment of that version of yourself. After that first experience, I've done ayahuasca 10 more times. And if I tell you about every single one of those experiences, we're going to be here for a freaking long time, and this is going to be more like a documentary. That's not as entertaining because I don't have a lot of edits on this video because it's too much work. But I do want to share one more experience that I think will kind of encapsulate why I decided to keep going back. The second time I went to an ayahuasca ceremony, it was actually not one ceremony, it was 2 ceremonies back to back in a longer weekend. Well, I guess weekends are always the same length, but it was like a 4-day weekend. Like Thursday through Friday, through Sunday. Sorry, it's late at night. And I went back at that time because I felt that I was starting to shift my perspective and I think in a different way, but I still wanted to hit a fast forward button and be better, be more enlightened. I was like, man, maybe if I do it 1 or 2 more times, I will be enlightened. Like, I'll be the next Buddha. LOL. Anyway, so I go, and some people say that ayahuasca never gives you what you want, but what you need. And again, I was going for my social anxiety and depression because I just felt that like I wasn't completely out of it. And instead, when I started my second journey, I couldn't stop whispering the word compassion. I had my blindfold on, I was lying down, I didn't even have any visuals. It was just this compassion, compassion, compassion. I said it so many times that I couldn't even remember what it meant. Quite honestly, I wasn't really sure if I ever truly understood what it meant. And then I heard a voice, the same voice from the first ceremony. And it said, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yeah." And the next thing I knew, I was clawing at my heart. And I was my mom. I saw what my mom went through as a child. I could feel her pain, her trauma. I don't even know a lot of details about my mother's childhood. She's told me a few stories, but not many. I haven't even seen a lot of photos. But in this journey, I felt that I saw everything, like on fast forward times 1000 speed, like flashes of things happening to my mom, and I was feeling the pain she went through and the trauma, and I was clawing in my heart. I was like, stop, stop, make it stop. I still feel it. I felt my mom's pain, you know? I felt her pain. My mom and I, we never really had a good relationship. Growing up, I definitely had abandonment issues, and I blamed my parents completely. And for the first time ever, I saw it from a different light. And it felt so bad. I felt so bad. And I kept saying sorry. I kept saying, "I'm sorry, Mom, I'm sorry." And this is cold. I felt all the pain. the same experience with my dad. I can't keep crying on camera, guys. It's embarrassing. But oh my god, okay, so yeah. So that happened. And I think I need to give ayahuasca a little bit of credit on this one, because I don't know if I would have been able to repair my relationship with my parents if it were not for that experience. And that's me speaking very honestly. I understand that it is still up to you after you have an ayahuasca experience to like implement and to integrate the experience. It's like, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it. I hope I said that right. But like, essentially it's, you know, ayahuasca will give you the vision and show you like the potential, but you still have to take the action. So yeah, a lot of forgiveness happened after that ceremony with my parents, and quite frankly, the way I perceive everybody has changed. What I also realized was I was judgmental of other people, and in essence I was judgmental of myself. And a really interesting thing, and this is also talked about in psychology, is if you are a judgmental person, if you're quick to judge other people, that is more of a reflection of how you feel about yourself. And I was a judgmental person. I never tried to put people's perspectives into play. I never tried to think about like what they went through, why they are the way they are, how so much of what they do and say to us is not personal. I took everything personally, and I was just like so quick to like label people and like pigeonhole them, and just things that made me unhappy, because it also just gave me perception of the world of like everyone's out to get me and no one has my best interest at heart, and you know, like F this person, F that person. It's all an illusion. It's kind of crazy now. Like I think back at it, I'm like now I don't give up. Like my thoughts are coming out a lot at once. Now I do not always take things personally. Of course, there are sometimes I still take things personally. I have an ego, and I'm still not an enlightened Buddha. Go figure. But anyway, but I have so much more self-awareness, and sometimes I laugh at things, you know, like when someone, like if someone's rude to you at random, and you take that on, and you take that personally, it's like, why? Like, why would we even do that? Like, obviously it has nothing to do with you. Like, if you're at a restaurant and your waiter is rude to you, or you call like a service agent and they're rude to you, like they don't even know you. They might not even know your name, you know? Like they literally know nothing about you. They're having a bad day. You don't know if like their parents just passed away or something tragic happened to them, or they had a traumatic childhood. And maybe some people don't care. Maybe some people like, you know, say, well, it doesn't matter what they've been through. They should still be respectful. But are you respectful 24/7? Have you never, ever in your life snapped at somebody when you were having a bad day? Or have you? You know, it's like my mindset just started to change. I was just like, wow, like I'm being really harsh and cruel, and like I'm thinking so critically of others, and it's actually a reflection of me, how I feel about myself. All right, so we're 2 ceremonies down, and technically we have 9 more to go, and I literally cannot sit here and tell you about 9 more ceremonies. Again, you're going to be bored out of your mind, and I can't keep crying. Why I went back the other 9 times is because I felt called to it. I continued to heal. I continued to get insight. And I just knew that it was part of my journey. I started getting more in touch with myself, my intuition, and really started to feel that. And I just knew those times that I had to go back. And I do want to highlight that because I don't think you need to go back that many times. There's some people who do ayahuasca hundreds of times. There's some people who are a one and done kind of person. There's some people who do it, half a dozen, a few dozen. It doesn't matter. But everybody is different and everyone has different experiences. And a lot of people that are open and vulnerable, that are willing to be open and vulnerable with me and share their experiences, when I hear sometimes about like what they went through, it is so drastically different from what I went through, like so drastically different. And that's the beauty of it, because I feel like the experience is truly tailored to you. Will I go back? Yeah, I will, but not anytime soon. I think after the 11th time, I was like, I'm done here. And let me tell you this, the very last time I did ayahuasca, I had a panic attack while I was in my journey of ayahuasca. And I'm so sorry if you're watching this video to like validate the fact that you want to or you're going to do it, but your worst fear is that you're going to get a panic attack on ayahuasca. Yep, I'm confirming your worst fear. I got a panic attack. So I started getting panic attacks a few years ago, and I talk about it on the YouTube channel, and I'll continue to talk about it and how I stopped having panic attacks. But yeah, I had already booked this ceremony, and I started having panic attacks a few months leading to the ceremony, and I was so petrified. I had never been scared of taking ayahuasca before, but this time I went to this retreat center, and I was so petrified I would have a panic attack. And it was 3 ceremonies and like one event, like one booking. And the first ceremony, nothing. The second ceremony, nothing. The third ceremony, I had a panic attack. And I had a Colombian shaman. They're actually not called shamans, they're called taitas. And as soon as I started having a panic attack, I was getting so scared. I felt like I was gonna lose my mind. And I raised my hand to call him over. And the voice, there she is. It feels feminine to me, but she goes, no, like a scream. And the voice said to me, Mother Ayahuasca is who I believe the voice was coming from. Maybe it was me, who knows? But the voice said, you need to sit with this alone. Only you can get yourself out of this. And if you learn how to breathe through a panic attack on ayahuasca, you will never have another panic attack again. Who knows if I'll ever have another panic attack again or not? Who knows? But I sat there and I frickin' breathed through this panic attack on ayahuasca. And if you've ever had a panic attack, you know what I mean. But if you haven't, it feels like you're dying, and it feels like, at least for me, you're losing your mind. Because your thoughts are racing so quickly, you feel like you can't control them. Your heart's accelerated, you're short of breath, and you're like, okay, I'm dying. Now imagine that on ayahuasca. Imagine, you can't even imagine. The intensity of it, I promise you cannot fathom. But I sat through it, and I got through it, and yeah, so now I think I'm pretty much invincible. And I think that's part of the reason I'm not going to go back and do ayahuasca anytime soon. I will go back eventually, but I don't feel called to it right now. So that was my experience with ayahuasca. If I talk about the integration, again, that would be a whole nother video. If you want to hear more about my story, how I integrated ayahuasca, if you have specific questions, write about it in the comments below, and I will try to get back to every single one of you. Maybe it's only one person, who knows? Maybe there's more people watching this. Who knows? Oh yeah, and part of why I started YouTube was because I got the calling during ayahuasca. And it's a big deal, because imagine like having debilitating social anxiety and then all of a sudden deciding you're going to start a YouTube channel. So that in itself can show how much I have changed since starting ayahuasca. And yeah, I no longer have social anxiety or depression. I no longer suffer with social anxiety and depression. And of course, there are days where I'm socially anxious, and there are days where I feel very down, but I know how to manage it so much better, and I just recognize them as thoughts. Like, I've incorporated mindfulness practices, I meditate, and I just don't, I read one time in the book Letting Go that I talk about by David Hawkins. He's like, you need to laugh at your unconscious thoughts. Laugh at them. Stop taking them so seriously. And the example he gives is like, when you're driving a car and someone cuts you off and you think, man, I would just love to fucking, and you fantasize about like doing really nefarious things, like, like hitting them or whatever it is. He's like, you gotta laugh at your unconscious mind, your monkey mind, the part of your mind that is just so like instinctive and so radical and not really, it's not conscious, you just have to laugh at these thoughts. So sometimes when I'm having these really self-deprecating thoughts, like, oh, Sarah, look, you're ugly, you're annoying, you're da-da-da-da-da, I'm like, bitch, shut the F up. I literally, and like, I will laugh at it. And then sometimes I don't feel as strong and I won't laugh at it. I'm like, maybe I am, all these things. But now it just passes so much faster because I just know the truth, man. The truth is that we're love, your essence is love. We are all love. Love is the answer. And I know I sound like a hippie, but I kind of am one. So that's the end of my story. Let me know if you have any questions. And thank you so much for watching this pretty much documentary style type video. Bye.